Hey, so Editor Michi here. I'm putting this here before the video actually starts so you guys understand. This is going to be, it was supposed to be a sketchbook rambles, but for some weird reason, my webcam isn't cooperating and my computer's not doing too hot. So I'm just using some backup footage I've been having lying around or meshing together with things behind the audio. So when I talk about the sketchbook, sorry, I was planning to work in my render sketchbook, but I literally don't have the time or the energy to fiddle with my webcam right now. So I'll have it fixed for next month, or fixed for a way to get it done for next month. So just want to put that here now, which is why it's going to be just a random rambles, but I talk about like a sketchbook rambles in the audio. So all right, let's get into the stuff. All right, so hi guys. This isn't something. Well, you can never really expect something like this happening. But I made a post on my community tab shortly after it happened. But at the start of this month, we lost a family member, a very close family member to Cody and I, and she's extremely missed. And I know people said that I don't have to talk about it, but I want to talk about it. YouTube for me, while a fun hobby, and yeah, it does make money. It's very therapeutic for me, and I know that's like really probably really unhealthy to like openly say out loud, but I can't think of much else to say about the fact, and I wanted to do this sketchbook series, this sketching series, as a way to keep you guys more informed of my life, and there's no other way to do that if, this big terrible tragedy had just happened and I don't talk about it. So by the time you're getting this audio, it's probably going to be much later in the month. I'm recording it early in the month, but I had a lot of stuff pre-recorded where I was happier and chippier and, no idea this was going to happen. So sorry for the dip in emotions there if you guys don't read community tab posts, 'cause I know not everybody gets them because, YouTube is an asshole sometimes. But so let me just talk about January first and then go into, the start of February. So January of 2020, that was a long month. I did not realize how long it had felt. Sorry, I'm also, on top of being very emotional, I'm also getting over being sick again. But January was a very long month for me. It was good. It started off great. I got to hang out with my friends, and then I had my first con, and that went well, and things were looking up and looking really good, and we were having a good time. And it just felt like, though, for some weird reason, January of 2020 already felt like a year. Like, it feels like so much shit has happened this month that I almost, like, can't even believe it. But it was really good. I mean, it was long, and I didn't get done as much stuff as I nearly wanted to, for obvious reasons. But I found a really good flow of things and working on things, and my friends, they surprised me, and they made a GoFundMe for my laptop, which is going to be down below. And I'm not sure if I'm still taking these at the time this is recording, but I'm also going to link, if it's not in the description, then it's not there anymore, but I'm taking coffee donations for helping us supplement our income for what had happened this month, obviously. This is different from the GoFundMe. The GoFundMe, like I said, it's going to a work asset. None of the money is even touching me. It's going to the people I trust most to help build me a computer. So it's not even like that money can go to this, and I wouldn't feel comfortable with that because that's not what the GoFundMe was for. So I was taking, or am still taking, again, if the link's not there to like a specific link, then it's not there, and if you want to just donate a coffee, go ahead. I'm No harm, no foul. I'm not going to be upset about that. No one has to donate or tip or anything, but I know some people want to, and if they do, it's there. But I was taking some commissions on top of my normal commissions because we had to supplement our income, which is what I'm going to talk about now. So at the very end of January, like literally the tail end of it, it was either Thursday or Friday, and what had happened was Cody had come home, and he had told me that his family member was in the hospital and that they were sick. And this family member did not have good health to begin with, and it was very hard, But they always bounced back. They were always very much of a fighter, and I just got this overwhelming urge to just go visit. I usually don't go visit my husband's family on the weekends, not because I don't want to, but it's usually because he has projects he's doing, and I can't help him with those. Those are, very mechanical, very, my husband's a car guy, very things that I can't help with, and with the weather the way it is, I can't just sit outside in the cold and watch him work, especially when I have my own stuff to do. And he understands, so it's not a big deal, but I often don't go on the weekends. On the weekends are usually my time to de-stress, to do things for my own job and things like that. And I've been looking for side work too, so that's a thing, But we got the call, and I got the overwhelming urge, like, no, I need to go this weekend. I don't know why, but I'm really happy I did, because I got to say goodbye. But when we got there, they had informed us that, the family member, I'm sorry if you don't like sniffling. Like I said, I'm literally getting over some very hardcore emotions and being sick, so it's not a good combo. But something else I should bring up I didn't bring up. So I moved sketchbooks. I know that's like completely random from this, but it's not the sketchbook I started in when I did this series. Because I really wanted to do more with markers, because an amazing patron of mine, Skyak2, surprised me from my Amazon wishlist, and she bought me this like giant set of Arteza markers, and I really want to play with them more. And with my nice wood one that my friend Holly made me, I don't want to waste that paper because it's not render paper. I want to get back into the swing of things, so that's why the sketchbook's different. Just so you guys aren't like, oh, what's going on? I moved sketchbooks. So but back to the family thing. We saw Cody's family, and they were all good and fine, and they were very happy we were here, and they were very optimistic. And we went to the hospital, and that was the first time that I, sorry for the pauses, but it's still, emotional. I had to wear, like, hazmat stuff because the family member was very sick. And with everything else going on right now, for the hospital safety, they told us, like, we had to wear masks, gloves, and this, like, weird rip-away bodysuit. I obviously didn't take pictures because that would have been really insulting, But I'll see if I can, like, try to Google something of what we wore and, like, slap it on screen. And we got to see the family member, and they were doing a lot better, and they were very responsive and talking, not much, but talking to us. And they got very lively when Cody and I came in the room, started talking, and we started, like, we just started hanging out, and, the family was there, and we had other relatives there, and we were hanging out and having fun, and we were thinking, like, oh, this is nothing. Family member does this all the time. We'll check on them tomorrow, and hopefully things are getting better, because the doctors were very optimistic. And something else I really want to say before I go more into this, this hospital was fucking amazing. And I have no problem shouting it out. I know it sounds weird, but if you live in Southern California and you can go to Redlands Community Hospital, I have never in my life seen someone being so well taken care of than there. And we only ever had good experiences there. It's not the hospital Cody and I go to. We have another insurance, so we can't technically go there, and we don't live close to there. but his other relatives do. So if you guys need a hospital and you're like scared or sketchy or you don't want to trust a doctor, please go to Redlands Community. Just with the only other comparison of someone who was in that situation was my grandmother years ago, and nowhere when they had the exact same insurance, just different hospitals, only like 20 minutes apart, were night and day for nurses, doctors, and just overall, care and generosity and stuff. So, I just wanted to say that because I know a lot of people like to shit on hospitals, and I have had some really bad experiences with hospitals myself. So, it was really nice seeing a hospital that was very, very nice, and did their job amazing, and everybody was very caring, and yeah, I like putting some positivity out there because I always see a lot of negativity for especially the American healthcare system and like the American doctors and stuff, but this one was really, really good. They were amazing. But so we, everything was fine. Another one of Cody's family members actually flew out to come visit the family member that passed. I know I'm being vague, but I promised myself that at least on YouTube in this way, I wouldn't vocally talk about them the way I used to, So I know it's kind of vague and weird, but I'm just doing it out of respect, so I hope you guys understand. But Cody had a relative fly out, and it was very nice, and I got to hang out with them. Hadn't seen them since my wedding, so it was kind of like a little awkward thing, like, oh, hey, last time I saw you was my wedding. And the relative, sadly, their partner and their children couldn't come out because it was so last minute, and we all thought that things were looking good. So the next day we went to the hospital, and this is so weird. This is so weird. I've never had. This is only a me thing, right? And at this point, it's pretty much a story time over just a sketchbook ramble. But we ran into Cody and I and one of his parents. We were in the elevator because we took two cars because it's a pretty big family at this point. We were in the elevator to go up to see the relative that was in the hospital, and the doctor was there. The doctor was very happy and very optimistic, and the doctor had told us that this morning the family member in the hospital was doing amazing, and they were looking to be a lot better, and we were all like, oh my god, this is such great news. You witches out there. Imbach was at the time of recording this, it was a couple days ago. Back on the first and the second, depending on where you are, and I know some places don't even do that, they go strictly on the weather, but I lit a candle for the relative, try to give him good health and stuff like that, because you guys don't know, I consider myself a witch, technically pagan, but I just feel more comfortable saying witch. So I know it's like a weird tangent, but again, just gotta explain some things to people who are new here. If you are new here, I'm sorry, this is your first video. This is definitely not like my normal content, but that was happening. But then we ran into the rest of Cody's family in the hallway, and there was a family friend that was pretty much a relative. I've known this woman and her husband for years, and I'm gonna call him P and Mike, just to be easier, because I know it's already complicated with all the people here being vague. But P was there, and P had told us pretty much the exact opposite news than the doctor had just told us, and I just felt my heart like drop to my core. I had a family member pass back in 2015, I believe. It was either 2015 or really early 2016, but it was very different. I was definitely not close to my grandmother the way I was to this relative, so it was a very different kind of situation, a very different feeling. And I remember at my grandma's funeral, I felt very Me and my brothers felt very awkward because we have a very weird relationship with my grandmother, and I'm not comfortable talking ill on dead people, but I'll just say she wasn't the best person. We didn't really feel much loss like my other family did, but this time I understood how my family felt. And I know it sounds weird, but I had, before that moment of my grandmother, I had never witnessed a death before. My family was very small, and we had just never had anybody pass away. But I know it sounds really weird, but I like to be like, oh, that's a weird thing to talk about, but it's, it's true. So, and the same thing with sort of Cody for this instance, because the only other relatives he had that passed away were so old that when he was a kid, they don't even really remember. He doesn't really remember them, so it's a little different circumstance. But well, we heard that news, and we decided to wait for the doctor, and the doctor said it was really bad. That he thought that this morning she was doing a lot better, but that their blood. God, I know this is hard to talk about, but I feel like other people should know. That's kind of why I have this YouTube. So like when I learn things, I can share it with you guys. But I learned because I took anatomy back in high school, but it was nothing like this. So what had happened was their oxygen. They had bad lungs. They had mesothelioma, I believe the doctor said, and COPD or CMPD. It was a respiratory lung issue from years of smoking years ago, and the doctor explained that their lungs were not getting the CO2 out of their blood, and so their blood was turning acidic. And while they were doing better, they tried weaning them off of the air machine, and it didn't work. And we were pretty much given two options, and all of us there, it was hard. We all broke down, and we all had a vote to put the relative, the family member, in comfort care, which is pretty much hospice care. And the reason for that is because this relative has for the over nearly 12 years that I've known them, been over 12 years now, they have openly always voiced how they never want to be hooked up to machines. And over the past, I'll say 5 or 4 years, their lungs were getting worse and worse, hence why this was a pretty common occurrence with us. And they had to have one of those like portable breathing machines, and they hated that thing. They hated that thing so much, and this machine was so much worse. And the one they wanted to put them on was even more worse. And so, due to their wishes, we decided to grant them, because the doctor also explained, again, the doctor was very nice and very caring, but the doctor also explained that we had a very small window of recovery, so it wasn't even like that, because I had to try to explain that to my own mom, because my mom and my dad came out to help me and Cody, and mostly Cody, because Cody's also their kid. Not in the incesty way, but in the, like, I've been with my husband for over 12 years now. We've only been married for, this is now our second year, but it's kind of a big deal, but my mother is very much the, like, no, if they have brain function and there's a chance they can get better, you do it. It doesn't matter what it is. And I used to sort of believe that way until this incident, and I know that might be really dark, and I don't want people to debate this in the comments, but I'm sure people will. But I believe when it comes down to that, and when the person is older, because this relative was much, much older with a lot of health issues, I do believe that if it were me in that situation, I would want the same thing. I know it's like really dark to say, especially with how I am now. I'm only 28. Well, I'm turning 28. I turned 27 this last year. Yeah, I'm just terrible with math. But, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, knock on wood. But if it were to come down to that, and I would have such a small window of time. That's what the doctor explained, was there was such a small window that if this family member did not get better within less than a week, they would have to put them on comfort care anyway. So you're putting them through all this stress and pain for literally no other reason, because it's not a long enough window of time to get better, that we decided. And it hurt, and there was a lot of crying and a lot of emotions, and the partner to the family member that passed, I'd only ever seen cry one other time, and as long as I've known them, so that was very, very hard. But we opted for the comfort care, and we actually we had a friend come out. It was very, very surprising, and I had later found out that when that friend was younger, they lost a sibling, and they had to make that choice at at such a young age. Like, their family may have had to make that choice to a young sibling, and Cody and I had no idea. And the fact that that friend came out and was there for us, obviously, if my friends are watching right now, I know you guys couldn't have done anything. Don't feel bad. We're not holding this against you guys at all. But it was nice. It was very nice having the friend there. And so then what happened, and we stayed there for, I think we stayed there for over as long as we could stay there. We went home around, I went home around 6 or 7 o'clock on Sunday, and Cody had called off of work, and his work understood, obviously. It sounds so bad to say, and it sounds so bad, but it was also at one of the worst times, because my husband's a teacher, and they were starting new classes, and because they had a shortage of teachers at the time, he has to take a triple class right now, which they didn't want to do, and he was getting paid really well for it, so it's not like he was being abused for it and they're looking for other people, but they were able to make the exception for this, obviously. So he was able to get Monday off, and I went home, and I had to take care of the animals, because all of that family has a lot of animals, and I'm very, 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 very grateful that I have my friend Tiffany, who lives in the same complex I do, so she was able to watch Biggs and Al, my pets, for us, because we were only going to be gone for the weekend, and obviously we were not going home Sunday night. So I went back to my in-laws' place and took care of the animals, and Cody was like, hey, do you mind if I go back to the hospital? And I said, no, you go back to the hospital, it's fine, just make sure that you're one of your relatives, one of the many that were there, they drive you. So I know it's really, really gross, but I'm just trying to, for me, I'm trying to to talk about it too, so it's easier. So Cody went back, and then around I was so exhausted, but around midnight, one of Cody's parents came back, and then around 4 a.m. Cody came back, and Cody went to sleep, and I was now awake because of all the commotion, and I'd gotten a lot of sleep. So I was awake, I took care of the animals, I worked on a couple things to distract my head from it, but I got this overwhelming feeling that it wasn't going to be long now. It was already a lot longer than we expected. The doctor, with how bad the family members' lungs were, the doctor literally gave them he said, and again, a very caring, very, very, very endearing way, he was like, it's a case-by-case basis, but in this case, with how the lungs are, most likely it's anywhere going to be from a few minutes to a few hours. So we were expecting that, and it wasn't. But right around 8 o'clock, and so one of Cody's parents came into the bedroom. I wasn't in the room, I was in the room next to it, and my phone's all going off. I need to put that little thing on silent real quick. just don't want to deal with that right now. But so it was around 8 o'clock, and when I heard Cody's parent go in there, I just knew. And the parent went to go get ready, so we'd go to the hospital. I was the most awake, so I offered to drive them, but none of them wanted me to. But I went to go see Cody, and be there for him. You know, it was my job. And got ready. It's very emotional. We got ready and we went to the hospital, and everyone was there. And I forgot. No, before going to the hospital, we had to drop the animals off, and we had to pick up the relative that had flown out. And the relative was really, really emotional because they didn't live around here. You know, they couldn't for work, so that was really hard. And all of that relative's family's out in the southern side of the U.S., so that was also really hard. But they came out, went to the hospital, and the hospital had moved the relative that passed to a very nice room, and they had flowers for them, and they had food and drink left out for us. And I remember thinking, like, oh my God, how could some hospital do this? They're probably going to charge us for this because of the instances I've had in the past. And no, it was all complimentary. It didn't. They were very sweet, and we got to say our final goodbyes, and we got to see them one last time, the way that we always knew them as, where it looked like they were just resting. You know, they weren't hooked up to machines, and they weren't stuff like that. Because that's something that I've always said. I'm a horror movie buff and stuff, and I am, but you're never really prepared for when you see someone in a hospital like that and how different they look compared to how you remember them. So it was very nice. It was very nice being able to see them like they were just resting. It was very nice. And then we made choices, you know, for things, what we were gonna do, and they want to have a fast funeral. If you guys don't know, my family was my family my family still is Jewish. I'm just not Jewish, but in Jewish culture, you have to have the funeral within 3 days of the person passing. You know, so they're not Jewish, but the only funeral I went to happened within 3 days, so it was a very, you know, boom, 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 very fast. And this one is pretty fast too, but they are having some time to be able to like mourn and grieve, and we're able to make choices, like resting place, funeral, contacting family, having family being able to fly out, which is also very nice, and which is why I'm recording this now. I'm technically recording this before the funeral because the video is already going to be pretty long, and I don't want to. I just don't want to go more into it. And I know the month just started, but it's not a good way to start the month. But I'm just remembering all the good times I had with this family member of Cody's, and how much it really hurts, and how I finally understand. How I finally understand, because I never fully understood the whole the saying, you know, of like, and then they got sick. Like, you hear it in movies and books all the time. It's like, oh, you know, everything was good, and then they got sick. You know, she got sick, he got sick, and I never fully understood what that meant until now, and now I do, and that's gonna be very different for me. Like, going on, it's so bad to have to compare it to this, because it's nothing like this. But if you're a horror movie fan, like I am, this is obviously, you know, this is a horrific thing that happened, and we're dealing with it. We're grieving, and we're going through. But the problem is too, you know, just because this happens, life doesn't stop. You know, you got work to do, you got bills to pay, you got pets to feed, you got family members to take care of, you got all that stuff. It doesn't just stop because one person's gone. which always hurts, and it's a harsh reality of the world. But I've always heard that, like, Pet Cemetery, you know, the Stephen King, 'cause I'm a Stephen King fan. It's more horrific to people who have small children than people who don't. It's still horrific either way, but for people who actually have small kids, it hits them harder because the thought of losing a kid, you know. And I think I understand that to some extent with losing this relative, because like I said, the only other relative I had I wasn't very close to. And it hurts, and I understand now, sadly, because it's just a fact of life, you know, people pass away, is that I understand grief a little bit more now. And let's just 2020 is already going to be a long year, but I'm still hoping that even with this tragedy that it's going to be a good year, because at least now, and I know it's cliche to say, but they're not suffering anymore. They're not on the breathing machine that they hated anymore, and they're in a much better place. And Cody and I are doing better now to better our health because of this, you know, because all of the problems that this relative had stemmed from being really, really, really unhealthy in their youth. And even though, and that was one thing that did break my heart and made me almost cry again in the hospital, was when the doctor was describing, because I asked what was wrong with her lungs, so I didn't fully understand, and I wanted like a kind of an explanation. I like explanations. And the doctor described that because she was a hardcore smoker with asthma, that's what did it. And the partner of the relative, kind of snapped back, you know, and was like, well, if they haven't smoked in nearly 30 years. And the doctor was like, it doesn't matter for some people. And I remember stories that this relative would tell me where, because that's just how it was back then, and this isn't like an anti-smoking campaign, because it's kind of like throat cancer, you know. People can get throat cancer not having smoked a day in their life, and then, you know, you have a chain smoker that never gets anything wrong happen to him. It's literally just, it boils down to, yeah, you still shouldn't do it, obviously, but it boils down to genetics, which is what's sad, because the relative would tell me how back then it's like, oh, they'd be at work and they'd have a cigarette in one hand and their inhaler in the other, and that was just how it was. And even my parents would tell me stories of how, like, back when they were in college, people would be able to smoke in the classroom, in the elevators, on planes, and everybody just smoked back then. And you know, tobacco and the nicotine was at its rampant, you know. That's why you also see in old-timey movies everybody's freaking smoking. And it's very hard, but just hearing that, you know, well, I haven't smoked in almost 30 years, but because they did it to such an extent in their youth, the damage had been done before they'd even known it. So, yeah, that's been my month. Very depressing, very upsetting, and I know, and obviously I'll make sure in the next sketchbook rambles thing that I just talk about the month, you know, and the start of things and stuff, so, and future plans and things. So yeah, thanks for listening, guys. I know this is very, very depressing and upsetting, but thank you for taking the time to listen. I really appreciate it. Thank you to all of my Patreon patrons for supporting me, especially in this dark time. And thank you to guys who, you know, you guys can't financially support me. It's fine, just watching here, liking, commenting, and subscribing. I hate having to say that, but with how YouTube is, I do now. Every little bit helps. And as always, guys, I will see you next time.